Hi there, this is Dr. Rob Cywes, back with another episode on the Carbaddictiondoc podcast channel on YouTube. Today we are going to discuss Keto Rash, or prurigo pigmentosa, which is the medical word. It just means itchy skin. And we see people getting keto rash on a regular basis when they treat a ketogenic lifestyle and they start a keto diet all wrong. They treat it like a diet. Today I'm going to start and I'm going to do it 100%. So what is keto rash? Well, first and foremost, I don't know. We don't have proof of anything. So some of what we're going to talk about is educated speculation. But really the purpose of all of these podcasts, this one and the one before, are to make science and biology easy for people who are not scientists or biologists or doctors to understand, so that lay people can apply the information that I provide as part of their transformation, as part of their lifestyle, to make themselves healthier and happier. And I've put a lot of thought and a lot of biological conceptual understanding into understanding keto rash. And here's my summation. None of this is absolute, but I believe it hangs together, and I believe that if you follow the directions I'm going to give you, you will not experience keto rash. And the best thing, obviously, is prevention rather than cure, but even if you have experienced it, don't be afraid. Because here's the thing. A ketogenic way of life, a low carbohydrate, high fat way of life, is what we are genetically as human beings. And God and nature are not conspiring to kill us. So perhaps there's something wrong with the way we apply it. So what is keto rash? Keto rash is an incredible itching in a vulnerable group of people who may be doing something wrong. And it comes up with welts, it comes up with redness. When you scratch it, you can actually injure the skin, and it lasts for a few weeks. The good thing is it usually goes away. And it usually goes away when your body adapts, but you can prevent it from coming on. The way that I believe the ketogenic rash evolves is, first of all, jumping in too quickly, trying to eat the elephant in one bite. And the second thing is retaining something that made us fat and sick as a species, which is a concept called lipophobia, or fear of eating fat. So one of the principles about the ketogenic diet is progressively, and the word progressively is so important, progressively to eliminate categories of carbohydrates, sugars, and starches from your diet, and to replace them with fat, to replace them with healthy, natural, saturated fat, not industrial fat that's been mechanized and transformed in factories, but the fat that comes from nature. What word haven't I used? I haven't used the word protein. And that for me is the single greatest mistake that people make when they initiate a so-called ketogenic diet. And especially when commercial entities that have no conceptual understanding, like South Beach Diet, who advertise a ketogenic diet, a low carbohydrate, high protein diet, that's where you get sick. And so many nephrologists are afraid of the ketogenic diet, and cardiologists, because they believe it to be a low carbohydrate, high protein diet. It is not. It is not a high protein diet. In fact, I almost never use the word protein in my ketogenic approach. Why? Because if you eat healthy fat from animal sources, protein always comes along for the ride. You eat a nice big fat ribeye steak, there's protein attached to it. You eat an egg, the yellow is the healthy part, but the yolk is the protein. Cheese, fish, seafood, poultry, the protein always comes along for the ride. Do not focus on the protein. Why is that important when it comes to a keto rash? Because if you do not protect your protein with excess amounts of fat, 65, 70% of the calories that you consume on a keto diet eventually should be fat. Why is that important? What do I mean by protection? See, when you eat fat and protein as opposed to carbohydrates, the fat and the protein can go down two pathways. Some of it may be used as energy, as fuel for your body. But the majority of it should be used as a nutrient, as part of the structure and the function of your body. So the primary role for protein should be tissue building, muscles, tissue repair, as an enzyme, as a hormone, as a nutrient. Very, very little protein should ever be used to produce sugar in the liver, something called gluconeogenesis, where the liver transforms amino acids to sugar. And the reason why we can, or the way in which we can diminish the use of protein as a fuel source, as an energy source through sugar, because remember, protein gets broken down to sugar, is by increasing our fat consumption, by getting into what we call ketosis and over time fat adapting. What does that mean? Fat adapting means when your body preferentially uses ketone bodies or fat as its primary fuel source rather than sugar, rather than glucose. And that transformation takes a bit of time. In the interim, the body will try to find sources of sugar. So as you start a ketogenic diet, don't start with a sheet of paper and all at once just go and get rid of all the carbohydrates. Slowly remove them from your life over the course of a few weeks. I start by eliminating the sugar from my patients' liquids that they drink. Then we go on to the grains and the starches. Then we go on to the snacks, and then we go on to the fruit. We do that in 4 stages so that their body progressively gets used to a reduction, eventually to zero, of the consumption of carbohydrates, so it can slowly increase the amount of sugar that it produces from an amino acids and from fat, from the glycerol part of fat. But also at that time that the cells adapt to using fat, to being comfortable using ketones as their primary fuel source, which diminishes the sugar consumption. Why is that important? And here's where the keto rash comes from, in my opinion. When you break proteins down, depending on the types of amino acids, they've got different attachments to them. Carboxylic acids, oxalic acids, there are branch chain amino acids. There are varieties, about 20 to 21 amino acids that the body uses, 9 of which are essential. But as we break them down and turn them through gluconeogenesis into sugar, those byproducts get shed into the body. And we should be pooping them out, we should be peeing them out. But if they don't come out in the urine or the stool, those byproducts of protein breakdown build up in the body. And particularly early on, if you dive into a ketogenic diet, if you dive into the deep end rather than walk into the shallow end of a ketogenic diet, that overwhelming protein breakdown products accumulates in the body. You don't have the mechanism to pee them out and poop them out. And what are they? They're oxalic acid, uric acid, and some of the bile acids and bile salts. And what happens is those products, those acidic products, leach into the body and they accumulate in particular places. So in fact, when you understand protein metabolism, we're not only talking about the keto rash. The nephrologists are all worried about kidney stones. Well, the kidney stones come, for the most part, from excessive protein breakdown and the accumulation of uric acid and oxalic acid in the kidneys. At the same time, the rheumatologists are really worried about gout and joint inflammation, because some of these crystals, some of the byproducts of these proteins crystallize, and the purines, which are also byproducts of that protein metabolism, crystallize out in the joints and promote gout. But gout and kidney stones, the metabolic gout, kidney stones, and the keto rash is where those same crystals, including bile acids, accumulate in the skin. And it's very, very itchy. Ask anyone with liver failure, anyone that's jaundiced, how itchy they are. They're scratching all the time because those bile acids and bile salts that collect in the skin are very, very itchy. So oxalic acid, uric acid, and bile acids are the ones that accumulate in the skin, accumulate in the kidneys, accumulate in the joints, and cause keto rash, cause ketogenic kidney stones, and cause gout. And that's the source of those problems. If you ease into a ketogenic diet by slowly eliminating the carbohydrates, you're going to protect yourself from the rash, from the stones in the kidneys, and from the gouty accumulation. But more importantly, as you start a ketogenic diet, you really rapidly want to ramp up your fat consumption. And you can go to previous podcasts looking at my fat fortification, my carnivore talks. They're brief and they tell you how to increase your fat component to protect the protein so the protein doesn't get broken down. Remember this, if you look at my body right now and I'm fat adapted and you melted me down and extracted all the sugar from my bloodstream, the total amount of sugar in my entire bloodstream to keep my blood sugar normal and keep me alive is around 5 grams, 4 to 5 grams, less than one level teaspoon of sugar. That's a tiny, tiny amount of either protein or glycerol that gets converted to that sugar in my ketogenic body because I'm fat adapted. If I wasn't, I'd require a much higher amount of sugar because of the turnover. So on a daily basis, I'm going to break down tons of protein. And that's where the harm comes from. So the ketogenic rash is primarily a mistake that people make when they rush into and jump into the deep end of a ketogenic diet and they remain lipophobic, afraid of eating fat. Oh, my cholesterol, garbage, cow excrement. Can't use that other word. No, don't be afraid of fat. Lipophobia in large part made us fat. Lipophobia and carbophilia. Get rid of the get rid of the carbohydrates from your diet progressively, increase the fat component tremendously, and accept the protein that comes along for the ride. You are unlikely to have or develop a ketogenic rash. You won't develop ketogenic kidney stones, and you won't develop ketogenic gout. Now, of course, there's going to be people out there that prey on you. Just like when you do a diet, sometimes you lose hair for a little while, and people are trying to sell you all kinds of things. Biotin and trace elements and vitamins, and this vitamin helps, and that garbage, more cow excrement. Nothing helps other than doing it right. So, sure, if you've got a little bit of extra money that you don't need, go ahead and buy your supplements, buy your vitamins, buy all those minerals at GNC that they promise you will take care of the keto rash. Or just do keto properly. The whole point about keto is you shouldn't spend money on anything other than your food. And if you develop a Steve Phinney, well-formulated ketogenic diet, you will not get those diseases. Remember, ketosis is a normal human state of being. That's what we're designed to be in. How can that be harmful to us? It isn't. It's when you do it wrong that this happens. Hopefully that gives you a good explanation, a good understanding of our medical aspects of how the ketogenic diet or a quasi-ketogenic diet can cause harm. But it's not an allergy because the human body will unlikely be allergic to what is genetically normal for us. It's very, very rare that we become allergic to what we're supposed to consume. It is not a deficiency. It's an excess of protein not protected by fat. Try that. See if you can prevent a ketogenic rash when you start. And also, if you do have it, if you've suffered from it, don't go back to eating a lot of carbohydrates. Increase your fat content. And it will resolve. But don't go and biopsy it. Don't go crazy with dermatologists who don't know what you're doing. Don't spend money. Spend time and apply biological and scientific principles of stepping into a ketogenic lifestyle slowly, one step at a time. Eat the elephant one bite at a time, not all in one go. For more information, please feel free to text me if you want to set up a consultation at 561-517-0642, and I would strongly encourage you to look at the other episodes on this YouTube channel, Carbaddictiondoc. Thanks very much, and feedback is always welcome. Critics? No.